A little while ago, I produced a shorts video where I discussed possibly making another one of these candy dishes. It's an interesting little design, and I will be making another one of these dishes today, and this is the video you're watching now. I'm going to be using some recycled wood from old schoolhouse desks. I've already determined there's no embedded metal in here, so we should be good. Just a couple things we need to know. I don't know if you can see this too well, but Joy loves Danny, and Michelle and Joy was here, W-A-Z, and then we have Logan, and I felt that I should go ahead and preserve this little bit of information because that is going to be gone forever soon. We got some gum that I'll be cleaning off, and next step is to start cutting. Now I'm going to be using this wood for the center course for the candy dispenser, and I think that should be pretty nice. Let's take a look at what this candy dish really entails. It's much more simple than it looks. We have a jar, a mason jar or whatever with a screw lid. And then we have a cat piece that has a hole cut that can accommodate the lid. And then right below it, we have another piece that has a hole. It really doesn't matter how large the hole is. I made it this size. You don't want it to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small either, because you want to be able to accommodate the nuts or the candies or whatever you have. And then below it, you have another piece that has a hole offset to accommodate this carousel. And then all the pieces below this carousel is solid. Now, this piece here, I may or may not make the same way. We'll see. But that's just glued on to this solid piece right here. So now the cat piece and the footer piece are just bigger just because I thought it would look good. Now, it doesn't have to be. I'm probably going to do the same. This piece here has a hole in the center and then two holes on the opposing sides. You could probably pull off 3 holes if you wanted, depending. And those 2 holes hold the candy, so the candy or nuts fall in here, and then as you turn it, it just transports it to the other side. The only downside is that sometimes more candies will come into here than this can accommodate, so they'll kind of get jammed up a little bit. And the candies aren't that strong, or nuts or whatever, so you kind of work it and you break it, and you can do it through, and then everything is fine. All right, I got all the major pieces cut. I have not cut the spout yet. Holding this like this is going to be dangerous. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some wood clamp that I'll be able to hold it in place and keep from hurting myself too badly. So as it stands, the jar fits loosely in here and a little too loosely, but that's okay. I have a solution to this. And I'm going to do what I did on the original candy dish, and that is I'm going to drill holes into the side on 2 or maybe all 4 sides, and I'm going to insert a dowel through the hole and protrude it just enough so that it will engage with the dealer whackers here. Dealer whacker being the technical term for it. And since these dealer whackers are rather narrow, I'm going to kind of sharpen the dowel So probably gonna do 2. It'll probably be easier that way. All right, so we have a base, and the solid pieces I have glued up. I haven't cleaned off the glue squeeze out yet. I will. And I also have the top and a hole for the jar. Now we need 2 more pieces right here. Okay. And what they're going to do is, if you look at the original and you look in here, you can see one piece is going to basically be the funnel for the candy to go, or nuts or whatever, to go from the jar into the hole right here. And the other piece is going to be the carriage for the transport of your treat. So I need to cut in the center of one of them a hole, and this looks like about the right size. I'm going to cut a hole there, and then I need to cut a second hole, but this one has to be offset. And the reason why it's offset is because this carriage needs to stick out from there so they can drop the candies down into the chute, which we still have to make. So this is the wood I chose for my carriage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out the carriage piece, but before I drill all the way through, I'm just going to mark, basically with this hole saw, which is a 3-inch hole saw, I'm going to basically mark it where it's going to be, and then I'm going to drill 2 opposing holes for the transporting of the treat. Once I have this completely cut out, then I'll take that blank that I have created and I will place it on here and determine where I want to cut this offset hole, right? And it's got to be in just enough so that there will be a dowel that's going to be used as the pivot point. And I'll know where to put that offset hole, and then I'll drill that out. The piece that I'm going to cut the small hole in the center, I'm also going to sand out a funnel shape to it so that it'll encourage the candies or nuts to fall in and it won't leave any strays behind. Hopefully I got all this on camera because I see that the camera's pointing slightly different. Now this is what we have to do, is we got this here. Of course, all these edges have to be sanded. And then the transport. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to mark the inside of this. And then what I'll do is I'll gouge out some of that so that it makes a scoop out, right? And then we'll also mark here where the dowel is going to go through. And this piece goes on top of that. Okay. So then the candy will fall down here, and then the cap piece, here it is, go on top of that. What's going to happen first is I need to sand out and smoothen the edges of this, and this, and this, and this. Once that's done, it's going to get close to assembly time. All right. Making headway. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been in my shop, and I really have forgotten where I left off on this video. So I'm going to do a quick review. I have the bottom plate here done, and what I want to do is I want to do a little round over on the corner there. And then here's the base of the unit. Okay. And what I did was I did a little right there, sanded out a little. And what that's going to do is going to encourage the candy to fall. And it's obviously not precisely on the circle, but on the hole, but it's good enough. Then what we have here is a carriage for where the candy carriage is going to work, and a piece of dowel that fits in that hole nicely. This does not have to be glued, the dowel, as long as this is glued and the next piece is glued, not this, but the next piece. And then we have the carriage, and it's, you know, it's got that for the candy to fall. I really made a mistake on where I drilled the hole for the carriage. It really should be much further forward, so roughly half of the carriage is hidden, and dowel is just on the edge. But this is the way I did it, and it still worked in the end. And I got a hole here drilled for the top piece here. And then finally, the top where the bottle will sit. So the idea is that the bottle will be filled with candy, and then this carriage is sanded thinner than this piece right here, so that way it will spin, and it'll spin freely. Even if I press down, it spins nicely. Okay. So the next step I want to do is I want to route a round over on both top and bottom of the outside edges of this piece here, and then I'm also going to route a round over on the top of the hole here, but it's going to be a very small round over, and the chances are they're all going to be small. I want to route a larger round over on the inside of here to encourage the candy to fall. I might go ahead and just make sure that it's grooved in a little bit here. All right, and then I want to round over the outside edge of this, and then the two holes, both top and bottom. And then this just needs to be glued into place. Then I'm going to route a round over, similar to what I have on the top piece, on the outside edge, to just make it smoother. We don't want any sharp edges. Before I glue up this last level, I want to go ahead and put a finish on this spinny dealy whacker, and the reason why, it'll be a lot easier to do it now, and plus I don't want to glue it, so I'm going to put a finish on this and the inside of this, and I'm going to use just regular mineral oil, and because it's food safe and it'll work, so that's what I'm going to do now. It's the next day, and I do not know what this wood is, but boy, did it purdy up once I put that mineral oil on it. That is really nice. Now, we're going to do that. Just as a proof of concept here, that, and then that. Look at that. Looking better all the time. Okay, I have sanded all the outside surfaces to 320 grit, and I know most people are going to say, oh, 320 grit, that's going to not take the stain very well. Well, guess what? I'm not going to stain, and I've sanded to 320 grit many times and never had a problem with the way I finish wood. So I like the extra smoothness, so that's what I did. So now it's time to start the glue up. And what I did was I wrapped the boards that are going to be glued together in blue tape, and that way when they're squeezed out, it doesn't squeeze out on the wood, which I have sanded to 320 grit. Now, it's not that important. I can always sand again on this side, and this side, but there's going to be a wheel sticking out on this side, so I can't sand here or here again. So it's really important in those two spots. But that's how it's going to be. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this piece on here after, of course, putting in this pivot pin. Glue that piece on, and then I'm going to clamp with tape. I'm not going to clamp with excuse me. I'm going to clamp with tape. I'm not going to clamp with regular F-style clamps or parallel clamps or whatever. I don't even have parallel clamps. But and the reason why I'm going to clamp with tape is that when you use clamps, sometimes things will slide a little bit, and I'm not interested in that happening. Okay, the glue up is completed as far as this is concerned. The cap and the base are off by just a little bit, but you know, in my experience, good enough is good enough, and most people aren't going to even notice. But the carriage works properly. I don't have this one stuck out as far as I did the original, but that's what you get when you don't work off of a plan. But I'm pretty pleased with it. The only thing I have to do is some sort of catch for the jar so that you could actually lift by the jar if you need to, and then a chute. Oh shoot, we need a chute. So we still need to do the chute, but I think this will work just fine for M&Ms, maybe even peanuts. Based on what I did last time, I made these layout lines, and I'm going to make the scoop on the table saw. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the outside lines, and then I'll start scooping out the inside. Now, I don't care about scooping out this area because it's only going to be this long, but I'm going to keep this extra length for safety reasons. Alright, so I did the outside and worked myself in, and then I did the center to get the center down to where the cut needs to be. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off the piece of wood off of this blank here and do some cleanup of the curve here, and using a router plane most likely, and then it's a matter of just gluing it on. How beautiful is that? It worked out perfectly. I just want to sand and kind of round over these edges on the sides and the front, but it's going to sit just like that and give a chute for the candy to. So we got the scoop on, and it's glued up, and it's looking good. So we have it all done. The only thing we have to deal with is the jar that's going to be sitting in the little the hole here. Now I could just leave it without a support of any kind, but I decided I want to do the support. So what I did is I got these two pieces of dowel, and I cut, I don't know if you can see that too well, but I cut with a knife a V on there, so then there come to a point. Now with the old jar that I used, the threading is a little wider, so it was easier to do. But I built this for this jar, and it's got narrower threading. So what I did was when I cut it so that it'll fit. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to put this in here, and then put the jar in, and twist these until they follow the groove, and then you'll be able to tighten it down. Rather than trying to do this on camera, I'm just going to add the glue, put it in place, put some tape to hold them in place, leave the jar in place, and then tomorrow when the glue is dried, we will see how it works out. Alright, the glue is dried. It's the next morning, and let's see how it did. Peel that away. Now I still have to cut off and clean up these nubs, but they hold the bottle, so you can lift by the bottle, and then you can just merely place the bottle in and tighten it up, and there you go. That looks good. Just like I did for the internal components, I'm going to use mineral oil for the rest of this, partially because it's food safe, and the other part is because it's easy to apply. So when I apply mineral oil to woodworking, what I'll do is I'll take the same exact precautions that I do for when I use tung oil or boiled linseed, and that is I make sure to dispose of my rags correctly. But the oil finishes are really easy to apply, in my opinion, and they're pretty nice finishes. I do not stain my work normally. I'll do it once in a while when I kind of have to, but in most cases I do not stain. So I'll just let the natural finish color come out. If I want a dark wood, I use a dark wood. If I want a light wood, I use a light wood. And the problem is with light woods is they end up getting darker anyway. So this is perfectly food safe and edible, so why bother with it? But what I'll do is I'll apply it on kind of thick and make sure I get all the crevices and cracks
and get all over the place.
And it brings out the beauty of the wood very nicely. I'm going to let it set for a moment, wipe off the excess with a clean dry rag, and then probably this afternoon or tomorrow we'll try it out. All right, so I think it looks pretty good. I think it came out pretty nice. And to load it, first you fill your little jar with in this case W's. They could be 3s or E's, I'm not sure, but they're W's. And you're gonna have to invert the base, screw on the jar, and there you go. And then it's pretty simple to serve yourself a handful of W's. There you go.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Good. Finally, after every woodworking project, you should always count your fingers. You end with 10. Good job.